All right, welcome in to the DFS breakdown for Thursday for the college basketball NCAA tournament. Excited to do these again this year. Been a lot of fun over the past couple in trying to break down the best way we can all these games. And of course, there's a lot of ways to break them down, whether it's you're filling out a bracket or you're playing DFS. We're here tonight to help you out with DFS for tomorrow. Biggest slate, of course, that we've had all year in a lot of different ways in terms of importance because of how big the contests are, but also the number of games. 16 games on the slate tomorrow are going to start at noon and run all the way through pretty much midnight Eastern time. So going to be a lot of fun. And some news that we'll get to as we go, things to watch out for, but really excited to dive into each and every game by game, how we're going to do this. We're going to try to do these every night for the tournament as we go forward. So tomorrow night we might be sweating a little bit when I come on here for the last couple games tipping off. And, we've got like I said, 16 games. We'll have 2 or 3 going on probably while I'm starting the show for the Friday slate. So a lot of games to get through, so let's dive in. I'll try to keep it as short as I can, touch on the key points in each and every game. And then maybe at the end, I'll pop out a few bets, and then we'll maybe, if we have time, I don't know that we will, briefly touch on some bracket strategy. We've got a sheet up that can help you out with that, which is our betting sheet. So we've got that that talks through bets or helps you with bets, and then also will help you with bracket pools if you have that, and so on and so forth. So really excited for this slate tomorrow for a lot of different reasons. Got a king of the bracket ticket tomorrow. We'll see what we can do. Got through 2 rounds last year, lost the what we'll call the Sweet 16. If you guys aren't familiar with that, it's a head-to-head contest each day with whoever you're matched up against. 64 people. I think it's 100K up top. So we'll see if we can get it done this year, make a little run like these teams are trying to do. So first game on the slate, Louisville and Creighton, an interesting 8-9 matchup. Pretty good game, I think. 2.5 point spread for Louisville in favor, and a 145.5 total. Pricing in this game doesn't have a lot of openings for playable options. You've got Hepburn at 9,600. Terrence Edwards is above 9K as well for Louisville. Really the only plays, I don't see any cash plays in this game. But in tournaments, I think you can get to Hepburn or Kalkbrenner on the Creighton side if you want to. Kalkbrenner would be my favorite of the two. He's priced down a little bit, actually, from where he's been. We've seen him above 10K a lot this year. So I don't hate taking a shot on him if you're paying up. But down in the mid-range, you've got Javon Hadley, who's probably would be my favorite play in this game if you're taking a shot, him or Kalkbrenner. Definitely on the Louisville side, price adjusted. Hadley's had some really solid, big scoring output games this year from time to time. And we could see that. They're going to need that from him here. And James Scott is 5,600, just kind of a secondary mix in if you're throwing a bunch of teams in, but not really a priority there down low. Kalkbrenner is really the only guy I have interest in on the Creighton side. Ashworth's 8,400, a really tough matchup against Chucky. You got Neal, who's all right. And then you got Jason Green, who plays a lot of minutes but just doesn't do a whole lot in those minutes. So really more of a cash type play there, but he's 4,800. I mean, it's not like I'm going out of my way to jam him in. So that's all I've got in this one. Purdue and High Point. We've got let's see, this is a 4 versus 13. Purdue's a 7.5 point favorite. Pretty big total, 152.5. 80 implied for Purdue. I think this is a great matchup for Braden Smith, 9,900 if you can get there. He's not going to get super highly owned. I like that play quite a bit. TKR, Trey Kaufman-Wren, just a stud inside scoring-wise for sure, is 9,100. The two main pieces there for Purdue are definitely in play. My preference would be for Braden. I think he could just nuke High Point here. Fletcher Lawyer is getting a little love just because he's 5K, but I don't really love ever playing him. He's so scoring reliant, not going to get many peripherals for you. And, if he either has an off game or High Point's just taking away the jump shot and forcing – into the lane, I think Lawyer has a lot of downside even at 5K. Just not a ton. I don't see him ever really crushing in tournaments there. And again, it's not the type of guy that I like to necessarily play in cash myself. On High Point side, just not a whole lot there with pricing, even with these guys priced down, pretty solid total. Kamani Hamilton is their main usage guy, him and Keza Giffa up top at 66 and 61. The only guy that I would maybe mix in would be Jocelyn Bodo. More of the peripheral type guy, going to get you rebounds, blocks, good point per minute fantasy producer in most cases. But, definitely tough matchup there for them, for him down low. With TKR. So not really interested in really anything in this big of a slate for High Point. Wisconsin and Montana, another big total, big spread for Wisconsin implied for 84. Definitely like some Wisconsin pieces here. I think Tanji had a big weekend last weekend in the Big Ten tournament. We kind of rode him through that weekend, so definitely don't mind him. He is 8,500. Kind of a weird price point where you've got other people like Shulga and Goldine and Bang who we'll get to that are slightly below. And then you got Wolf at the same price, and then you can get up to the other studs. So kind of a weird price that I don't think he's going to get very owned. So definitely don't hate the play where this team seems to go as Tanji goes, is kind of how it looked last weekend. Blackwell would be the pivot guard, more so, just really not the main guy in most cases compared to Tanji. So he would be the secondary GPP pivot. And then you got Stephen Crow, who's just really underpriced at 5,300. Rates out pretty well. Definitely seems pretty safe in terms of a cash game lineup. So I like him. On the other side, you've got Pridgeon and Monet Williams, who comes off the bench. It's kind of weird how they do that rotation with him coming off the bench and then pretty much playing starter minutes, but just really not sure why he's not getting the full run there. I know some players just for whatever reason play better off the bench, but he's definitely their lead guy, lead usage player. He's going to be their scorer, so they're going to need him. Maybe they do push him up more minutes into the 30s, and then he becomes a pretty solid play, possibly. I think you can mix him in tournaments and Pridgeon as well, who's more like I said, with some other guys, peripheral, rebounding guard there. So could definitely mix them in tournaments. Maybe don't hate a little mini game stack where you play Tanji, Crowell, and Monet Williams back on the other side, but I don't want to get too crazy with this one. Crowell would be my overall favorite play in the game, then Tanji, price adjusted. Houston and SIUE, just a massive spread, low total. SIUE is a complete X. We don't hardly play any good players against Houston throughout the year. Definitely not going to be playing them with an under 50 implied total. Houston, sounds like Juwan Roberts is going to be okay to play. So maybe he starts. I just don't want to really get involved with this team with this big of a spread. They're fighting. I don't think Roberts sees anywhere near normal minutes here. Maybe he plays 20 or so, and that's kind of it. The guards, I think they're at least priced to where you could take a shot on Uzon, Cryer, or Sharp. I don't think you're getting, full minutes from them here, but maybe if you can get into the low 30s, they could be fine. But if they do spread this out and they get deeper with the rotation later on in this game, I think downside is there for these players, even though they're near 80 implied, and obviously they're not going to have trouble scoring or anything like that. So Cryer would probably be my favorite if you're going to go to one of them, just because he has the nuke scoring upside. But don't love anybody overall in this game just because of the blowout. Auburn and Alabama State, this was the game that they just added right after last night's play-in game from Alabama State. And they didn't do a great job with pricing because I don't know if it was because of that being late. But Auburn favored by 32, 91 implied total here. Just a massive, team total, and they're going to score at will as well. Broome is not the guy who is really underpriced. You could mix him in tournaments. He's 10-5. I mean, he's not hitting 30 minutes here. I would be very surprised if he hits 30. You got to think about in these tournament games, a lot of times we worry about blowouts even throughout the year, but in the regular season, I don't worry about it as much as I do when they've got a quick turnaround, 2-day turnaround to play again in the next round. And if they're up big, they can rest some of these guys. But so Broome, you could mix in. We've seen him just plumb nuke in 27, 28 minutes. He was doing that last year, pretty much only playing those minutes every game, no matter who they were playing. So Broome's fine. The real interest to me becomes these other underpriced pieces. Denver Jones is a starter, plays near 30 in a normal game. He's going to get there just by kind of pitching in everywhere a little bit. He's only 4,300, so definitely like him, one of the best values of the slate. Then you got CBM, Chad Baker Mazzara, who can be a head case sometimes. And then Miles Kelly. They're a little bit more of the, they could have the upside, kind of like I was talking about with Cryer, that think the scoring could funnel through them, and they could just pop off for a massive game. And these price tags are very playable. Dylan Cardwell would be another, interesting GPP play if you didn't want to play Broome, but you wanted exposure to this team down low. Cardwell's only 4,700, so I think he's somewhat in play as well. I don't know that I would full stack this team just because of the kind of risk that they just spread out, maybe even a little more than I have here in looking at the numbers here in terms of minutes. If they get up massively early on, but these price tags, I wouldn't hate playing two of them. I'm kind of toying back and forth with. In a cash lineup, whether I include and play two, but we'll see when we get there. But I definitely think it's viable. On the other side with Alabama State, you got TJ Madlock, who is just underpriced. I think he got like a $1,500 price discount from last night. Obviously, a big step up in class, but we see this a lot of years more so than we are on this slate, but we see these 16 seeds, their main guys get super priced down, and they're just going to be out there and they're going to be playing. And that's, again, in basketball DFS, any NBA or college, you want people out on the floor and getting usage. So that, Madlock fits that bill. and 6,100 is a very fair tag to run back on this other side. If you were playing Broom, I almost really like the idea of including Madlock in any Broom lineups. And the reason I say that is because where does Broom get his full nuke upside to pop off at this price tag? And it's playing, having Alabama State keep this thing within 10 to 15 points and keep Broom in the game for longer and push his minutes into the 30s. And if they're doing that, more than likely, Madlock's having a good game to carry them into that. So you could do a little mini game stack where you play Broom, Jones, and Madlock or something like that. Don't hate that play here. But definitely the priorities are the Auburn underpriced plays in CBM, Kelly, and Denver Jones. Clemson and McNeese State. Interesting matchup with a 7.5 spread. McNeese State coach Will Way just took a job at NC State. He'll still be coaching, I would assume. But kind of a weird situation now for this team. I mean, they knew he was leaving, but for him to take the job on the eve of the tournament is kind of crazy. Kind of fits him. He's kind of a all over the place type of coach, we'll say. So Clemson has one of the better plays of the slate in the mid-range. Victor Locken, who has just been a stud all year. He's only 6,400 here. He was one of the first names that popped to me when I looked at the slate. And if he doesn't foul, he's going to nuke this team. And so definitely one of the priorities in this mid-range. You got Chase Hunter, who could be a pivot. I don't really want to play multiple Clemson pieces here. Lower total. Could grind a little bit with their pace that both these teams run at. Shefflin's all right if you wanted to pay up a little more, but I would prefer the savings to Locken. And then on the other side, don't really have a ton of interest, but if you were playing tournaments, probably getting to 20 lineups to get to these guys. But Garcia and Copeland on sub 6K is at least somewhat interesting. I think they have some upside at that at those price tags. BYU and VCU, 2.5 point favorite for BYU. Not a ton on their side that I like. They run a very spread out rotation. You can see we've only got one guy for 30 minutes. But then you've got Dallin Hall, who's only 4K. I think he's a solid value look. Just kind of depends on where we land. I don't think he's going to be like the first guy type that I plug into lineups in the value tier. But if I land there, I don't hate finishing a lineup or finishing one of the last couple spots with him. Nail would be another option down there at 3,600. But both those guys are going to play right around 20 minutes. They might bump up slightly higher than that. But just be prepared that they've got to get there in those minutes. On the other side with VCU, one of the better guard kind of near spend ups on the slate is Max Shulga at 8K. He's going to play nearly every minute here for VCU. Jack Clark is kind of the do-it-all type guy for them at 7K. We were playing him a lot. I think he's a little bit cheaper than what he is tomorrow, but we've been playing him some over the last few weeks when they've been on these slates. I think he's in play. He's going to play a lot of minutes. And then Philip Russell's pretty cheap at 43. I don't see a ton of upside in him, but if you need a guy to plug in, like kind of similar to the Dallin Hall play, to just kind of chug your lineup along for fairly cheap, I think you could go there. But Shulga's definitely the top play in this game by quite a bit. Gonzaga and Georgia, interesting one here. 6.5 point favorite for Gonzaga, 150.5 total. Don't have a ton of interest in a lot of people on this team. I think EK has a tough matchup with Newell and these guys. And then Nimhard, 8,200. He's going to play pretty much every minute, but don't love it. You could mix him in. The biggest piece here to talk about is Braden Huff. And where this game falls is kind of weird. It's the second game on the same court. I think it's in Wichita, and which means a lot of times we don't get the starters for those games unless we can get some news from beat writers or something. The way that DraftKings puts the times of locks doesn't actually coincide with the second games on the same court. They lock them way too early. So we're probably not going to get the starters, which is unfortunate because in the conference championship game against St. Mary's, they actually started Huff over Greg. And Huff had been a guy that's been playing between 10 and 15 minutes, really. And he bumped up and just nukes in a lot of minutes in the conference championship game, just carried them really. And, it seems like to me that was kind of a stylistic matchup to where they just kind of used him because of the matchup. And that I would think they would maybe go back to Greg here to start, but we kind of need that information. If Huff starts at 4,900, in cash games to me, he's a lock. In tournaments, I think he would be a very good play. And I just don't know that we're going to get that news. But that's going to be something that I'm probably going to land in that around 5K range. And I'm just going to try to be doing all I can do in that around that window to try to see if he's going to start. And I probably won't play him in cash if he does, but we'll kind of see. I don't know. Interesting to see. Really would like him starting to play him. Greg would be an interesting play if he started at only 4,100, but I'm not in love with it like I would be if Huff started. Georgia, don't see a ton here. Tyron Lawrence is still cheap at 4,600, so you could go there, but not really interested in getting deep into this game here. Tennessee and Wofford. Tennessee's a 19-point favorite, kind of lowish total for this game. Tennessee's just more of the grinded out type, going to get the job done and move on type of play, type of team, and that's what I see him doing here. So Ziegler, 8,300, you're probably going to need this thing to push close and push his minutes up into the upper 30s for him to really get there at 83. But we do have Milicic at 5K, who was a just nuked slates all non-conference early this year. And once they got into the SEC, he just kind of fell off a cliff. I mean, I watched him some in the conference tournament. I think it was like the Auburn game and whoever they played, I think the day before. And he looked awful. I know he's dealt with some injuries, but 5K rates out pretty well, to be honest with you. 5K is really cheap for him. And if you look back at some of the stuff he was doing in the non-conference against teams more like Wofford than what he was playing in the SEC, he was going off. And so I think he would be another one kind of, that you could plug in because he's after Braden Huff. You could plug in Milicic, and if you get, the news on Huff, you can play him. If you don't, you just stay with Milicic, something like that. Don't hate that idea. Not going to play anybody against Tennessee. It's kind of like the deal with Houston. Don't really want to go there. So don't want to go against Tennessee. So that's really it in this game for me. A couple pieces of interest on Tennessee. Kansas and Arkansas, 145.5 total, 5-point favorite for Kansas. Dickinson, 10K. okay. You can mix him in. KJ Adams is only 6,500. I think you can play either one of them. Not priorities, just more so later pivots if you need it, or last man in type plays. Zeke Mayo's the tournament option. Kind of went through some struggles there, but he's had a couple decent games recently. Then you got Arkansas. Thero is out, confirmed. Fland is rumored to be coming back, but the word from Calipari is that he's not going to play many minutes. Find that kind of weird. I mean, this guy was their kind of engine last to start this year in terms of he was supposed to be their lead guy, and they've looked a lot better without him, to be honest. But with John L. Davis taking control, the bigs for Arkansas have been solid. Ivisic, Brazil, Adu, the Tennessee transfer, all have been good. Don't hate the idea of playing them. Ivisic is only 5,400. That's pretty cheap compared to what he has been, but he looked to be struggling with some injuries late in the conference tournament game last week. Maybe he's over that now. He is too cheap for his rates and things at 5,400, but we'll kind of see how that lands. Don't love this game overall. This is really more of a filler type game, not a priority play here, but definitely don't hate mixing a guy or two in GPP. A&M and Yale. A&M I don't have any interest in them here. Just kind of the pricing kind of takes out, again, kind of a more spread out minutes team for the most part. Wade Taylor, 7,800, just kind of a meh type play. On the Yale side, you got Bang and Townsend in the low to mid sevens. I think both are in play. I don't know that I would want both of them in a lineup. But we could see, just kind of depends. Again, mainly because in thinking about in tournaments, you're not playing anybody on the other side. You're not kind of running for this to just push up and down the court. So they could both get there, no doubt. But I would prefer, I think, Bang of the two. Townsend is definitely fine, though, if you either need the 400 or just kind of want the different type of player for them. Mizzou and Drake. Not a ton on either side of this game. I just don't really have interest. Been playing Anthony Robinson a little bit here and there, but this is an offensive team who plays pretty fast. They're pretty efficient in Missouri, but you've got Drake, who plays the 364th pace in the country. I mean, they walk up and down the floor constantly. I don't want to get involved really in this game overall. Sturts is their main guy, but he's 9,300. If he was a little cheaper, you could go there. Cam Manu at 5,100. I probably just butchered that, but he's okay at only 51. One of their better producers, but from a fantasy point per minute perspective. But I just don't want to get too involved in this one. UCLA and Utah State. UCLA is a 5.5 point favorite here. I don't like this Utah State team at all. Not impressed by them. Don't have any interest in against a kind of slow UCLA team for DFS. Daly is definitely a tournament option at 5,500. He's had some really good games, and he also falls on his face. So I would not play him and Mara together. Mara, you're probably not getting to on this big of a slate. He could and probably should play more minutes, but I don't know that you're going to be able to bank on that coming into a slate with 16 games. So, kind of a game that I'm almost crossing off on Thursday. St. John's and Omaha, 18.5-point favorite for St. John's. We've seen them a lot this year on slates if you've been playing DFS with us. Richmond, Louise, Ejiofor, all are studs. I don't know that they get here in this game. The price tags are tough. They're going to be able to score. They're implied for over 80. So if it funnels through one of those guys, then sure. But traditionally, we see this spread out between St. John's and Zuby would probably be my favorite of those three, just because he has more of the block kind of messy upside. Richmond does too with the steals and the way he plays defense. So those two would be my favorite. Luis is, he's been, I don't know what it is, but it seems like every time I play him, he just falls straight on his face. But maybe that's just my luck. Davion Smith has been mixing back in off the bench some. Aaron Scott, I think, is really just a kind of plug in another one of those around 5K plays with Huff and Milicic, and 5,100 for him, I think, is very solid. He's going to play around 30 minutes, and 5,100, he can get there doing a few different things. He's averaging 2 stocks per game, about 8 points, 4 rebounds. So he can get there. It's not probably going to wow you, probably not going to give you like an upside tournament winning, you won because of Aaron Scott, but he's more than likely not going to kill you and hurt you either. So on the other side with Omaha, not a lot of interest here. JJ White's okay at under 7. That's a little underpriced probably for him. But man, St. John's is a tough defense. So I just don't love anybody with Omaha. Michigan and UC San Diego. We've got Wolf and Goldine for Michigan. Slight favorites here still. Kind of a trendy upset pick for brackets from what I can tell. Both of these guys should dominate this matchup. UC San Diego is not a very big team. Goldine is only 7,800. I think he's definitely my favorite of the two. But Wolf, if you want the pivot, is definitely more of the feels to me like he's more of the skilled, type guy, where Goldine is just more of he's going to get you the messy stuff. So don't hate either one. I personally probably won't play both together. Pick one of the two. So definitely main lineup viable there. The guards, I don't have much interest in for Michigan in this game. UC San Diego with Tate Jones at 9K. They're going to need him if they're going to push this close. So, he's definitely not a cash play, of course, but in tournaments, I don't hate the idea of mixing him in. I think he's going to be super low owned. And, if they do, and people really are liking this upset pick, if they do, it's going to go through probably someone like him. 30% usage rate, averaging around 20 points a game. I don't hate that for tournaments. Take a shot on the upside of a Tate Jones. Last game of the night, Texas Tech and UNC Wilmington. From what I can tell, I've seen some news just about an hour or so ago that said Chance McMillan is still pretty much a game time decision, but Darian Williams should play tomorrow. Definitely something to watch. I think what the McMillan news would do is make a Christian Anderson even more viable than he already is. And 5,700 for him is just another one of those mid-range, solid plug-along options right now. And the upside for more if a McMillan does end up out. JT Toppin, 9,800, one of the better pay-ups on the slate. I think he can do a lot in this matchup here. and we've seen him nuke in a lot of spots this year. So really like him as well. UNC Wilmington, I don't have much here. I think I don't know much about this team. Did see him a little bit last week during the conference tournaments, I believe. I think it was Obioa, who was their massive center that always gets in foul trouble. I'm pretty sure I ended up playing him because he was so cheap. But so that's probably why he projects decently here. Probably not the type of guy in this game that I would want to get to, especially if he struggles with foul trouble. Sean Moore, okay. Don't really love the idea of getting to a lot from Wilmington in this one, but Toppin would definitely be a priority play if you can get to a pay up like that. And then Anderson at 5,700 has the upside for a lot more than what he's even showing right there. So that is it for the DFS looks. In terms of, I'll just talk through. I've not finalized the card for tomorrow yet. I'm probably going to look through some of the more of these and kind of get a good feel for the bets and put some out. I will, let's see. We've got, I think I just had one posted and it's not tomorrow. Couple that stick out to me right now are, where did it go? Houston, I know they're 28.5 point favorites, but I think they full on just nuke this team. SIUE can't score. One of the worst offenses that you're going to see, and they're going up against one of the best defenses. So I don't even know if they're going to get to their team total of 50 unless Houston just backs off the gas. So I kind of like that, laying just a massive amount of points and just taking it. Let's see some of the other ones. McNeese getting 7.5 seems like a lot. I mean, I like Clemson really, but McNeese 7.5 is quite a few points. VCU and BYU, very torn on that one from when I was filling out my bracket, because I could see VCU in their style of play giving BYU a little trouble, but man, BYU's been shooting the lights out. And if they get on a hot streak like that, I mean, they could knock out some good teams in this tournament. So pretty torn on that one. Not sure I'll have a play. Wofford and Tennessee, that's a lot of points for Tennessee to lay just because they don't, they're just not one of those teams that's going to blow you out in a lot of cases. So I don't hate taking the points with Wofford there. Obviously, I think Tennessee wins, but I don't hate that one. Missouri, a lot of people probably own Drake. I don't hate taking Missouri to just overmatch this team at 6.5. Kind of feel the same about Michigan, to be honest. It's like everybody likes UC San Diego. You lay the 2.5 with the Big Ten champs here. I mean, maybe I'm missing something, but I don't think San Diego has anything to handle those two big men down low, and I think they give them a lot of trouble. So I don't hate that one. I'll try to finalize a card with a few bets at least for tomorrow, and I'll have those posted on the betting sheet for you guys. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm going to try to keep these around 30 to 40 minutes, even with this many games, just kind of touch on the best plays in each spot. And Yeah, so good luck to everybody as we kick off the tournament tomorrow. I will have rankings up. Hopefully going to get that done tonight. And Core may have that up tonight as well. So we'll see on that page. Good luck to everybody in their brackets, their bets, their DFS contest. We'll see you back tomorrow night for a breakdown of